Hello, everyone, and good morning. I'm joining you again on a crisp and sunny autumn day here in the city of Los Angeles. And today I want to talk about a leadership aspect that is in great discussion these days. It's about the amount of unhappiness that many leaders seem to feel. They're not only unhappy, they're anxious and they're angry. And once they get to leadership positions, they don't seem to be enjoying it at all. So I've been trying to read and understand as to what causes this unhappiness. How can leaders be happier? But that probably is a story for another day. Today, I want to talk about a short story that I read many years ago, but has stayed somewhere in the corner of my mind. And I think it has an impact on leadership and how leaders look at their organization, how leaders look at life, how leaders look at the folk whom they lead. And this is Ursula K. Guin's 1973 short story, The Ones Who Walked Away from Olemas. It's a fabulous, hypothetical story. Olemas is a small town which is in the throes of utopia. Everybody is happy. Everybody is dancing. Unbounded happiness. There is plenty of drink, plenty of good food, and you couldn't find a better place to live in. The catch is that after the summer festival, where everybody seems to be having a pretty good time, they're taken to a small, dingy cellar where there's a little child. And the little child is having a difficult time. The little child is not part of the happiness. The little child lives in her own filth, is beaten occasionally, is not given food regularly, or is thrown scraps of food, and is far removed from the other denizens of Olemas. Now the citizens or denizens of Olemas are horrified. And they're told that their happiness depends upon the cruelty meted out to this little child in the basement. And they can choose. And now they fall into three categories. Some of them say that my happiness is more important than the little child, so I really couldn't care less. And I'm going to move on in life. The second category, a little perturbed. But they say, look, there's nothing much I can do about it. So I'm going to go back to my life of utopian happiness. The problem is too large to change. And then there's a third category who says, look, this is not a story I want to be part of. And I'm going to walk away. And they walk away into the darkness in silence. And the story doesn't tell us what happens to these people. But they make a moral choice and leave. A brilliant, brilliant story with great depth. How many of us are unwilling to accept prejudice, bias, harassment, poor behavior at places like the workplace? Consider Olemas to be your workplace. And a leader is the one who has to make this moral choice. So most organizations are like this. A beautiful city with a secret, like Olemas. Most people in Olemas know it. They see it once, feel terrible for a moment, and then convince themselves they must accept it for the greater good. You've heard this before. What is good for a larger number of people is good enough, and if there are few sacrifices to be made, then brilliant. John Stuart Mill. The hidden cost of success. Every company, every institution has a version of that basement. Sometimes it's an overlooked team or overworked team carrying everyone else. Sometimes it's a culture that tolerates bias. Sometimes it's one person who's quietly suffering while the rest move on. And we justify it. But ethical leadership means asking a very uncomfortable question. What is the real cost of our success? And who is paying that cost? Complicity versus responsibility. In the story, the people who stay in Olemas are not evil. They simply decide the system is too big to change. They rationalize their complicity, they look away. Leaders often do the same. We inherit systems, work cultures, policies, and expectations, and we convince ourselves it's not our place to challenge them or walk away. Just think about it. What a brilliant story. But true leadership is not maintaining what exists. It is taking responsibility for the parts of the system that are unjust, unfair, or simply not good. The ones who walk away, do they pay a price? Obviously, yes. Can they live with their conscience? Maybe. But that's a decision many leaders have to make. So, what can we learn as leaders from this great short story? Written in 1973. What are the Olemas moments in our organization? What are the silent injustices we've accepted as normal? Who are the people in our teams who might be in the basement while everyone else celebrates? And finally, leadership is not about titles. It's not about authority. Leadership is about conscience. And maybe when we have leaders who lead by their conscience, happiness will follow. But I promise I'm going to talk more about this in my coming blogs. Thank you very much for hearing me out.